Hello, this is Sophie Lawson from sophielawson.com, and this is episode 57 of the Sophie Art Podcast, which is a little podcast I do about the art and things. And this one is going to be another one where I got my little bag with Dennis, and Dennis is going to pull out a topic, and then I have 15 minutes to talk about it. I'm not allowed to edit the podcast, and got to talk about it for 15 minutes. I'm not allowed to change the topic. I want to edit that now because I feel like I've messed up. But stay focused. Okay, so that's basically it. You can find show notes and everything at sophielawson.com. You can find videos at youtube.com/sophielawson. And I'm going to remember to hit the bong this time because I forgot last time. But basically, let's jump right into it really. There's a certain topic I would love to talk about, so I'm going to see if it comes up, because I was almost going to change the format this week. I was going to just pick a topic myself, but I thought I'd keep it as it is. So Dennis is going into the bag, and he's going to pull out a random topic. I put a couple new topics in this week as well, so it'll be interesting to see what comes out. If you've got any topics you'd like me to talk about or anything like that, you can send a message. Dennis has got one. You can send a message to sophielawson.com/contact or you can leave a message in the comments below. But Dennis has got the topic, so Dennis is going to go now. And the topic is, I can't see what colour it is. I think it is a purple one. The topic is, this is quite a funny one. This is very funny after the last couple of weeks' episodes about Instagram. The topic this week is, you don't need social media. Bing bong! So we've got 15 minutes to talk about that one. Crumbs. Actually, I think that was one of the ones I put in this week, because I was listening to a podcast. I can't remember which one it was, but I tried to put the link to it in the show notes. And there was somebody on that podcast. Who was... Dennis is in the bowl, which is quite funny. Oh yeah, this podcast is on YouTube at youtube.com/sophielawson, so you can watch the episodes on YouTube if you want. But this bloke was on this podcast, and he was saying he's wrote a book, and it's really successful, but he's not on any social media. He hardly goes online. Online. So he's hardly online, and yet he's got a really successful book. And he was on this podcast. So what I think he was doing was, what he said was, he said you don't need social media. He said, basically he was saying that it's a belief, it's like a lie that we believed. So, like, society believes you need to have a social media feeds with loads of followers and stuff in order to become successful and to get your stuff out there. But he was saying that that's a lie, and what he was saying was it's like a negative thing whereby you end up focusing on social media, which distracts you from actually doing what you should be doing. So what he said was, focus on the work, focus on, like for him it was writing a book. So he focused on writing this book, and then he put the book out there. And I guess because what I worked out, I think what he was doing was he must have gone to podcasts and like said, can you interview me or something. I don't know how it worked. I don't know how he got started with it, but it's obviously worked for him, because it was really funny. Somebody sent him a message, because his whole thing is you don't need social media. So somebody sent him an email and said, how can you not have social media? How can you have a successful book without social media? Nobody will find you. And it was funny because he replied to that message by saying, well, you found me. Which is, I like that, but because as he was talking, something like made sense with that. Something made sense with me where I started thinking, see, I've said all along, I don't really like being on social media. I do and I don't. I love being on Instagram, because Instagram, you can just go through the feed and it's just full of beautiful things. And especially this last couple of weeks since I started really using it, it's just amazing how many like beautiful things you see on there. So it is good, but then it's also, I've noticed it's a bad thing as well, because I could quite easily see how I could become addicted to like scrolling through the feed, just looking for things, because you click on one thing, like a hashtag. Something that's really good about Instagram, actually, I didn't realise this, but if you follow a hashtag, then the hashtag starts populating your feed. So I love that, because I followed one called Draw This In Your Style, hashtag Draw This In Your Style, which is, it's a load of artists who take somebody else's character, it's mainly character, take somebody else's character and they draw it in their own style, and I love that one. So this is what I'm saying, there's almost like a conflict between social media, where I love it and I hate it. And I think what you need to do, because they actually talked about this on that podcast, because one of the other hosts, she hasn't even got a smartphone, and yet she's like an entrepreneur, she runs an internet business and stuff. So she was saying it's really funny that she's doing all this technology thing, but she hasn't got a smartphone. So when you listen to stuff like that, it just gets you thinking. And I've pretty much stopped Twitter now, because I feel like that was what I'm trying to do, is focus on one feed really. So I love YouTube, but I think I'm going to do YouTube and Instagram, and I'm going to focus on that. But I do start wondering, do you even need it? And I've been thinking, because what I'm doing at the moment, I'm trying to focus so that I can focus on studying, and I'm trying to get rid of all distractions. Now, I'm really conflicted about this, because social media is super distracting, but it's super helpful as well. And I think it's another one of these things where I talk about it a lot, there's like a pendulum swinging, where you need to get into the middle somewhere, where you can be on social media without it like distracting you. And I think the way to do that is to, what they talked about on this podcast, block a set time. And I've tried to do this, but it's really, it's a lot harder than you think. So what they say is you say, for instance, between 7 and 8 at night, I'm going to go on social media. But then I wouldn't do that, because I wouldn't go on social media just before bed. So in a way, I want to get it out of the way, which sounds bad. The only reason I'd want to get it out of the way is I want to go to bed having meditated and like peaceful. I don't want to be going to bed having just been on a screen. But then I don't want to do social media right at the start of the day, because that's when I want to do my studying. So, but what they said was, find a block, like a little hour, and in that hour you say, this is social media time. And then again, I think you could set an alarm, a bit like this podcast. You focus it, and then when the alarm goes off, you have to force yourself to stop. And that's the hard bit. I mean, that's one of the things I'm really struggling with quite a lot of things, is stopping. So like when I'm studying, the worst one for me is when I'm working on a website. Say I'm editing a video. If I'm editing a video and I've said I'm going to edit this video between 12 and 2, I'll set an alarm for 2 o'clock, but because editing always takes longer than you think, and what ends up happening is I'm still editing at like 3:30, and so then that means that's now extra hour and a half, which is now going into my meditation and reading. I haven't done any reading for weeks. because because with my Instagram I've been making these little like stories. So it's weird. I've been making these little stories for Instagram, like little templates, which I think are really cool. But it takes so much time. But it's one of these things where it's a lot of time at the start, and then once you got the templates done, it's quite easy. So yeah, but I'm really conflicted about this, because part of me, this is actually what when I said at the start of the podcast, I've been struggling with something this week, and it's what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about is, see, I've even been questioning again. I've been looking at everything and asking, should I be doing that at the moment? Because all I want to do, that's quite weird. I've just noticed something. I got like a Yoshi teddy right in front of me. Oh, I've got to talk about something. There's a Yoshi teddy right in front of me, and I can just see it trapped like a negative shape. It's popping out at me, and I like that because they don't normally do that. So that must mean that I'm learning something, because that negative shape is popping out at me. But it reminded me of something. I love this. I don't really know what it means, but I was walking to work, and when I'm walking to work, I walk past like a big river, and across the river is a load of trees. It's like it's Saltram, which is like the forest where I take photos. So I'm walking along looking at this forest, and I stopped, and I was watching the birds flying back and forth. And what I noticed, and this is just like drawing, I don't really know what it means, but it just got to me, because what I noticed was when a bird was flying in front of the trees were dark, the sky was light. When the bird was flying in front of the trees, the bird was light, so the bird was light on a dark background. But then when the bird went up above the trees, it suddenly flipped, where the bird was now dark on a light background. And I just thought, that's like drawing, because in drawing, you're constantly looking to see what is light on dark and what's dark on light. And like at life drawing, you'll notice that, like on an arm, you might have a light bit here, but it then blends into dark. But I've not really noticed it in the everyday world. And I think that's kind of like that negative shape. Like it sort of, you start seeing, this is why I want to focus on studying, because when you're studying, you start seeing differently, even when you're not drawing, or when you're not studying. Like everyday life, you're noticing things. And I've just finished a SVS Learn course where they were talking about creating a character, and he was talking about lighting, and he said, because I really struggle with trying to capture lighting and understand it, and he said what he does is, at night time he'll stand at the bottom of the stairs, he'll look up the stairs at the lighting, and he'll study it to see how the lighting is falling and interacting with the stairs. And again, I think that's the sort of same thing. It's, you just start noticing things in everyday life. And I really like that. But I've been really conflicted with, I have to focus on my studying, but I know that everything else, you can't do everything. And like, I'm slowly taking things out of my life that I can't be doing, like video games, recently Twitter. But there's part of me that's thinking, do I just, for the next year, focus on studying and cut everything out? So in other words, just cut social media, because you don't need it. It's true, you don't need it, because I've been thinking about this. You post an image and you get a load of likes, but so what? Like, why am I even posting stuff on social media? I don't really know. It's like, I want to get more followers, I want to get lots of likes, but why? I don't really know. And when this bloke started talking and he said that you don't need it, because, yeah, in my head, I've got this feeling, because everybody seems to be saying this, like all these artists, they all seem to be saying that you have to be on social media to build your following up, to build up your audience. But I'm just thinking, like, in the old days they didn't do this. In the old days they just, I feel like sometimes it would have been so much easier in the old days, because you could have just focused on drawing. There would have been no distractions. But then at the same time, you can look at social media and say it's amazing, because all these amazing artists that I've seen and found because of social media, like yesterday, 2 days ago, I signed up to Ilya Kufshanov's Patreon page, and this is amazing because on his Patreon page, he's an artist who I love, and I didn't realise, but on his Patreon page, for $5, you get like a bunch of load of his paintings. He'll post the images, like the process, sketches, inks, and even the Photoshop files of his drawings. So you can actually go in and really study his work. So because I love his work, I can go in there now and like see how he's done it, and it's almost like you're reverse engineering his work, which I think is the ultimate form of like studying somebody. Because if you want to draw as good as somebody, you've got to like study them to see what they're doing. So I feel like that's amazing, and I only found that because of Instagram and stuff, because he had linked to his Patreon page. So this is a real conflict, this one. You don't need social media, but it is amazing. So I think, again, it's one of these things where you don't need social. I don't think it's that you don't need social media. I think it's that you've got to find a way to have social media without it distracting you. And because like what I did for a long time was I would go on, post something, and it's almost like I'd go in, post something, and get out, get in and get out, and then I wouldn't reply to anybody's comments for ages. And that's not the way I think to do it. Like I want to be part of it. That's why I'm focusing on one at the moment. And again, I might even be thinking about this too much, which I do a lot. But like I say, it's another one of these conflict things. And what I love about, that's the timer. I was going to say, what I love about when you hit a conflict like this, to me, that means you're really close to. It's like social media to me is like a paradox, because you don't need it. You know you don't need it. But there's something really amazing about it. You don't need it, but you do need it. But what you need is you need it in a way that works for you and doesn't distract you. That's what the conflict is. It's trying to find a way to have social media. This is it. This is a good way to say it, I think. Social media needs to be something that supports you, doesn't become the thing you're doing. So in other words, you need to focus on, for me, I need to focus on my art, but have the social media like sprinkled in. Whereas I can feel, definitely lately, last week or so, I can feel that it's almost become like social media is becoming the thing, with art sprinkled in, and that's what I'm saying, it's got to change. And then I've got so much to say about this, because I've always been like an all or nothing person. So when you're like that, when you notice that something is not working quite right, you want to just get rid of it. But if you just get rid of it, that's not the way for the balance, because you're always gonna. You do need social media. I'm really, really confused by this, but then at the same time you don't need social media, because that bloke on that podcast, he has proven that you don't need social media. So, and then I've got so much to say, because I've been thinking about this quite a lot, and I was thinking the happiest time in my life was around 2017 or something, and I went through 6 months where I didn't even go on the internet or nothing. All I was doing was taking photos at Saltram, drawing and meditating. That's the 3 things that I love. So it's just something to think about, I think. Bing! That's basically it. Little Dennis can come out the little. Actually, I'm going to keep him there. Dennis is in the bowl. He looks quite happy there. Oh, his head's fallen off. Little Dennis. So that's basically it for this week's podcast. I love that sound. I shared this little tip about hot chocolates on one of the podcasts before, but I'm going to share it again because it is amazing. What you do is, when you're making a hot chocolate, put the powder in and put some milkshake in, and then when you add the hot water, you get like a really frothy hot chocolate. And if you say use a strawberry milkshake, you get like a strawberry chocolatey hot chocolate. It's lovely. So that's basically it really for this week's podcast. If you've got any questions or anything, I'm going to keep thinking about this social media thing, because it is, I think you have to find a way to have it without it distracting you, and there is a way to do that, and it's just exactly the same feeling that I've got about video games. But for the moment, I know I need to get rid of video games, but I don't think I need to do that with social media. I think with social media I can find a way to keep it sprinkled in, but it might be that I have to get rid of it first before I can do that. I don't know, but it's something to think about. And that's it really. So you can find show notes and everything at sophielawson.com. I'm going to try and find that podcast where he's talking about this, because it's really fascinating, and I'll put that in the show notes at sophielawson.com. And you can find video of this podcast if you're listening to it like as an MP3 or something. You can find video at youtube.com. And that is it. I haven't got a inspirational quote yet, but I'm going to go through my SVS Learn study notes and randomly pull a page that's got a quote on it, because what I do is, as I'm writing out my notes, I'm going to pick one because I like this. He actually said something which I really liked on the last course I did. So the last course I did was called Rabbit Cycle Demo, and what he did was, Jake Parker, it was about 2 hours, he drew a rabbit on a bicycle using a reference image, which it was a reference image of a motorbike, and he completely transformed it into it was almost like a spaceship bicycle. But he went through the whole process, and there was Will Terry was with him, and they had people on the phones so you could ask questions and stuff. But I just needed to burp then. But he was working through the whole process, so you saw him sketching, inking, and colouring it, and it was quite fascinating. But what I've said this before, and what I love about SVS Learn is they keep their mistakes in. So as he's drawing, he's making mistakes, and that just inspires me, because I think if this master is okay with making mistakes, it means it makes me feel like I'm okay when I make mistakes. So one of the quotes he said, because I think it's amazing. So what I do is, if as they're talking, if they ever say anything which I think, oh, that is amazing, I'll write it down, and then when I'm writing up my notes a bit more tidy, I will highlight those quotes. So there's just loads of quotes that I got here, but the one that I really love is, he said, there's a difference between watching and learning. And I really like that, because he was basically saying, he was saying about how people go through the courses really quickly, and all they're doing really is just watching it. They're just watching the videos, and that's it. But he says there's a difference between watching and learning, because watch and study. This is why I think it's really important to take notes. Even if you're reading a book, watching a video, anything, just take notes. And I would almost say that's what it's, when I go to my gender clinic and stuff, when I come out, I write little diary entries. I could almost see those as notes as well, because it's amazing when you go back and read what you've wrote, you sort of learn more, and it almost goes back to that quote. I think Lee Hammond has got the best quote ever that quote where she says, repetition is the key to learning, practice is the key to success. Like, repetition is the key to learning. So when if I'm watching one of these courses, I'll write out the notes, rough, that's the first one. I'll then write out the notes again, in like a bit more tidy, but that's like repeating it. So that's now 3 times that I've consumed that information, and then when you go back and read it again, you're consuming it again, so you're just repeating in your head. And then like, this is why I love the podcast, because you're talking about things. It's almost like another form of repetition. And the more you keep processing what you're learning, the more you're going to learn it. So I really like that. And so this week's quote, it goes to Will Terry, because Will Terry is the one who said it. And he said, "There's a difference between watching and learning."